I always thought betrayal was something that happened to other people. To strangers in cautionary tales, to fictional characters in novels, to someone distant enough that it couldn't possibly touch my life. But I was wrong. And the worst part? I never saw it coming. It all started on a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the air is just cool enough to make you crave a warm drink and the comfort of a loved one. I had just finished setting the table for dinner, lighting the candles in the center of the mahogany dining table. The soft glow flickered against the polished wood, casting gentle shadows around the room. It was supposed to be a quiet night, just the two of us, a break from our otherwise chaotic schedules. I had prepared his favorite meal, rosemary chicken with garlic mashed potatoes, and was eagerly awaiting his return. Ethan, my husband, had always been a creature of habit. He left for work at precisely 7:30 a.m., texted me around noon to check in, and returned home by 6:15 p.m. without fail. It was one of the things I loved about him, his reliability, his unwavering presence in my life. But that night, 6:15 came and went. Then 7 o'clock. Then 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, my concern had grown into a tight knot in my stomach. I dialed his number, my fingers trembling slightly. The phone rang, once, twice, then went to voicemail. I tried again. No answer. Just as I was about to reach for my car keys, thinking I'd drive to his office to check on him, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. Working late. Don't wait up. No apology. No explanation. Just 4 words that felt like a door slamming shut. Something wasn't right. Ethan never worked late without telling me in advance. And even then, he would always call, always assure me he'd make it up to me. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But doubt had already started seeping in, slow and insidious like ink spreading through water. My mind went to the unthinkable, the kind of scenarios you push away because acknowledging them would make them real. Had he met someone else? Was he keeping secrets? I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he really was just swamped with work. But deep down, I knew. I knew something had shifted, something unspoken but undeniable. For the next few weeks, little things started to change. His schedule grew erratic, and his once consistent check-ins became sporadic. He started dressing differently, sharper, more put together, even on weekends. His phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, was now always with him, always face down. I tried to ignore it, tried to push away the gnawing feeling that something was slipping through my fingers. But it was there, a growing distance, a subtle change in the way he looked at me, as if I were becoming a stranger in my own home. And then, one night, everything came to a head. I had spent the past few weeks trying to convince myself that I was overreacting. That I was just being paranoid, insecure. But the pieces weren't adding up. The longer I watched, the more the cracks in Ethan's perfect routine widened. And if there was one thing I couldn't stand, it was unanswered questions. The first clue came in the form of a receipt. A small, crumpled slip of paper I found wedged between the seats of his car when I borrowed it to run errands. The name of an upscale restaurant stared back at me, one we had never been to together. The date was 2 nights prior, the same evening he claimed to be working late. My pulse spiked as I flipped the paper over, scanning for more details. 2 entrees. 2 glasses of wine. A dessert. Definitely not a solo meal. That alone might not have been damning. A business dinner, perhaps. A meal with a colleague. But when paired with everything else, the late nights, the shift in demeanor, the way he guarded his phone, it felt like the first tangible piece of a much larger puzzle. Determined to uncover the truth, I started paying closer attention. First, his phone. Ethan had never been the type to hide things. But now, his phone never left his side. He'd turned off notifications, changed his passcode, and would angle the screen away from me whenever he texted. It didn't take much to figure out that he was being secretive. One night, as he slept soundly beside me, I reached for it, heart pounding. I had no way of unlocking it. Next, his clothes. He had always dressed well, but lately, his attention to detail had become meticulous. A new cologne. Crisp shirts, even on weekends. Dry cleaning receipts for items he never wore around me. And then there were his absences. The next time he claimed to be working late, I followed him. My hands were trembling as I gripped the steering wheel, trailing his car from a safe distance. He drove with ease, no sign of hesitation, as if he had done this a dozen times before. My stomach churned as he pulled into a boutique hotel parking lot. I parked a few spaces away, my heart hammering in my chest as I watched him step out of the car. He checked his reflection in the side mirror, smoothed his hair, and then she arrived. A woman. Tall, elegant, dressed in a fitted coat and heels. Her dark hair cascaded in waves over her shoulders as she approached him. Without hesitation, she reached up and brushed a hand against his cheek. And then, he kissed her. Everything inside me shattered. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm out of the car, scream his name, demand an explanation. But I didn't. Instead, I forced myself to remain still, to watch, to let the evidence sink in. I reached for my phone, hands still shaking, and snapped a picture. Then another. And another. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof of my husband's betrayal. And just like that, the world I had built with him began to crumble. The moment I had undeniable proof of Ethan's betrayal, something inside me snapped. Not in the way you might expect. There were no tears, no screaming, no dramatic collapse. Instead, I felt something cold and calculating take hold. I wasn't going to be the devastated wife who begged for an explanation. No. I was going to be the storm Ethan never saw coming. I spent the next few days in meticulous preparation. If I was going to get my revenge, it had to be perfect. Swift. Devastating. First, I secured my financial independence. Ethan had always been the breadwinner, but I wasn't stupid. Over the years, I had quietly saved money in a separate account, just in case. Now, I transferred more, small, unnoticeable amounts, enough to ensure that when I walked away, I wouldn't be left scrambling. I researched divorce attorneys, found one with an excellent record for ensuring settlements favored the wronged spouse. I compiled every financial document, every shared account statement, and tucked them away for safekeeping. Next, I dug deeper. The woman, Elle, wasn't a complete mystery anymore. A few well-placed inquiries, a little social media sleuthing, and I had a name. Lauren Mitchell. She worked at a high-end interior design firm downtown, single, early 30s. A polished, effortless beauty. The kind of woman Ethan had always claimed he wasn't interested in. I visited her office under the guise of a potential client, sitting through her presentation with a neutral expression while internally cataloging every detail about her. The way she spoke, the pictures on her desk, the way her eyes widened when I mentioned Ethan's name casually in conversation. She knew. Her fingers trembled slightly as she flipped through swatches, her smile faltering for just a second. That was all the confirmation I needed. I wasn't just going to expose Ethan. I was going to dismantle his entire world. I called our closest friends and family, planting seeds of doubt about Ethan's behavior, laying the groundwork for what was to come. A casual mention here, an offhand remark there. People noticed. Soon, whispers started to spread. I didn't need to say much, just enough to ensure that when the truth came out, everyone would already suspect it. That night, I made my final move. I arranged for Ethan to be home early, telling him I had a special dinner planned. He arrived, oblivious, walking into a carefully set trap. The table was beautifully laid out. Candlelight flickered against the crystal wine glasses. A slow, romantic song played in the background. The aroma of his favorite meal filled the air. Every element was perfect, designed to lull him into a false sense of security. And then I brought out the envelope. Thick, heavy, filled with the pictures I had taken, the receipts I had gathered, and copies of his text exchanges with Lauren that I had pulled from our shared phone plan. I slid it across the table and watched as he hesitated before picking it up. "What's this?" he asked, his voice tight. "Open it." His hands trembled slightly as he pulled out the contents, his face paling with each passing second. I watched the facade crack, the confident, self-assured man unraveling before me. I can explain," he stammered. I smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Oh, I'm counting on it." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms as I let the silence stretch between us. The weight of the evidence crushed him, and I could see the desperate calculations in his eyes. He was scrambling for an excuse, a lie, a way to manipulate the situation. But I had him cornered. There was no escape. Ethan's face had lost all color. His hands trembled as he rifled through the damning contents of the envelope, each photograph, each receipt, each message stripping away the illusion he had so carefully constructed. I watched him, my heart pounding, but not with fear or sadness. No, this was something else. Something electric. Something powerful. "You knew," he finally whispered, his voice hoarse. I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Of course I knew, Ethan. Did you really think you could hide this from me forever?" He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. "It's not what it looks like." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like." I reached into the envelope and pulled out the most damning picture of them all, one of him and Lauren locked in a passionate embrace outside the boutique hotel. I slid it across the table toward him. He couldn't even look at it. A heavy silence settled between us, the kind that makes your ears ring. I could see the wheels turning in his head, his desperate attempt to find a way out of this mess. And then, almost predictably, the anger came. "So what now?" he snapped, pushing the envelope away. "You want a divorce? You want to ruin my life?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, my eyes locking onto his. "Oh, Ethan," I said softly, "your life is already ruined. You just don't know it yet." He scoffed, but there was unease in his eyes. "You don't have proof of anything illegal." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Who said I needed legal proof?" I let the words sink in, watching as panic flickered across his face. "I've spoken to your boss. Your colleagues. Our friends. And let's just say, they all found our little chat very interesting." He stood abruptly, knocking over his wine glass, red liquid spilling onto the pristine tablecloth like blood. "You had no right." "Oh, but I did." I stood too, matching his energy, refusing to be intimidated. "You made your choices, Ethan. And now, you get to live with them." His breathing was ragged, his fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to lash out, but he knew better. He knew he had already lost control. The front door creaked open, and a shadow fell across the dining room floor. Lauren. She stood there, wide-eyed, her expensive heels clicking against the hardwood as she stepped inside. She had no idea what she had just walked into. Perfect. I turned back to Ethan, my lips curving into a slow, knowing smirk. Now the fun really begins. The silence in the room was suffocating, thick with the weight of unspoken words and shattered illusions. Lauren stood frozen in the doorway, her perfectly manicured fingers tightening around the strap of her designer purse. Her eyes darted between me and Ethan, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. I turned to face her fully, a slow, predatory smile creeping across my lips. "Lauren, how lovely of you to join us. It seems you've walked into quite the scene." Ethan exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand down his face. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered, his voice tight with barely contained panic. "Oh, but she should," I interjected, my tone dripping with false warmth. "After all, she's been such an important part of your life lately. Isn't that right, darling?" Lauren shifted uncomfortably, her throat working as she swallowed hard. I didn't know. That I'd find out? I supplied. That I'd collect every receipt, every message, every little lie you both wove together like a pathetic little tapestry? Oh, Lauren, you underestimated me. Ethan slammed his fists against the table, sending a shudder through the room. Enough. What do you want? You want me to beg? Fine. I'm sorry, okay? But this humiliation, it isn't necessary. I let out a soft, mirthless laugh. Oh, Ethan, you still think this is about an apology? No. This is about consequences. And yours are only just beginning. Lauren took a step back, her composure cracking. Listen, I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to what? I snapped, cutting through her feigned remorse. Didn't mean to destroy a marriage? Didn't mean to sneak around with another woman's husband? Or didn't mean to get caught? Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. Not for her. Not for him. They had both made their choices. Now, they would both face the fallout. I took my phone from the table, tapping the screen once before holding it up so they could both see the message I had just sent. What did you do? Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper. I met his gaze, my expression unwavering. I made sure the truth reached everyone who needed to hear it. Your boss. Our friends. Your family. Consider it my parting gift. The color drained from his face. He took a step toward me, but I stood my ground, unflinching. Lauren let out a strangled gasp. Oh my God. My job. Your reputation. I finished for her, tilting my head. Funny how actions have consequences, isn't it? Ethan raked a hand through his hair, his breathing uneven. You're going to regret this. I smiled, slow and victorious. No, Ethan. The only regret in this room belongs to you. With that, I turned on my heel and strode toward the door, my heart hammering but my resolve unshaken. As I stepped into the cool night air, the first real breath I had taken in months filled my lungs. I had lost something tonight, yes. But I had gained something far greater. Freedom.